There is an ancient wound in the human soul, a silent fracture that many of us carry without knowing its name. It is the subtle pain that arises when the knowledge we seek on the outside fails to fill the emptiness we feel on the inside. This wound is the result of a profound fear, the fear that institutions have of direct knowledge, of an experience that needs no intermediaries. For centuries, we were taught to look for answers in holy places, from holy men, in holy words. But something inside us continues to whisper that the most important truth is not something you learn, but something you remember. This feeling that a piece of our existential puzzle is missing is the first call to look inward, to the very place we were taught to fear. The great explorer of the soul, Carl Jung, recognized this same truth when he looked at the ancient Gnostics. He saw in the idea of gnosis a knowledge born from intimate and transformative experience, a perfect reflection of his own discovery of individuation. To him, the self was not a theory to be studied or a dogma to be followed, but a living mystery to be found in the depths of our being. The Gnostics were not proposing a new religion. They were offering a map back home to the divine spark that resides in each of us, patiently waiting to be rediscovered. They knew that the true spiritual journey is not about becoming something new, but about remembering who we have always been. It is precisely this direct connection to the divine that terrified the early church. In its mission to unify an empire under a single banner of faith, the idea of a free individual mind, one that did not depend on priests or rituals to connect with the sacred, was the greatest threat of all. That is why the Gnostics were labeled as heretics. The fear was not of a different God, but of a humanity that could discover its own divine power, making structures of control obsolete. They feared the freedom that comes when a person realizes that the kingdom of heaven is not a place you go to after death, but a state of consciousness that can be accessed right here, right now. To symbolize this forbidden wisdom, they used a powerful and universal archetype, the serpent. Not the serpent of temptation we were told about, but the serpent of wisdom, of awakening, and of healing. From the Garden of Eden to the sands where the Nag Hammadi texts were found, the serpent represents the knowledge that invites us to open our eyes, to question the reality imposed upon us, and to taste the fruit of direct experience. It is the symbol of the vital energy that rises up our spine, activating our perception and freeing us from the chains of ignorance. It reminds us that the true sin was never knowledge, but the fear of knowing ourselves. That is why we are here. Because even after centuries of suppression, the echoes of these Gnostic fragments still whisper through time. They tell us of an inner temple that no institution could ever conquer, that no fire could ever burn, a sacred sanctuary that exists inside of you. The truths they guarded were not in their books, but in the keys that these books offered to open the doors of your own perception. And maybe, just maybe, the fact that you are hearing this now means that one of those doors is ready to be opened. There is a silent conflict that is not fought on battlefields, but in the heart of the human experience. It is an undeclared war between the faith we are given and the knowing that is born within us. Think about it for a moment. Why does organized faith, which should be a bridge to the divine, so often seem to be afraid of direct, personal experience? The answer is subtle yet profound. It is because direct experience cannot be controlled, it cannot be standardized, and it cannot be mass-distributed. It is unique to every soul. And this uniqueness, this spiritual sovereignty, has always been seen as a threat by any system that depends on conformity and collective obedience to maintain its power. This invisible tension manifests as a loneliness that many seekers feel. It is the dissonance between what the world tells you that you should believe and what your soul knows to be true. On one side, there is the comfort of collective dogma, a shared set of beliefs that offers a sense of belonging and security. On the other, there is the solitary revelation, that moment of blinding clarity that arrives in the silence of your room, on a walk in nature, or in the middle of a dark night of the soul. That revelation is yours, and yours alone. And when it comes, it can make you feel like a stranger in a world that seems content with ready-made answers, generating a deep pain of not being understood in your most intimate truth. The Gnostic idea that every human being carries within them a divine spark, a fragment of the original light, was what shook the foundations of an empire. Imagine the impact of this truth on a society built upon hierarchies of power. If you possess a direct connection to the source, if God is not just in heaven, but also within your heart, then why would you need an intermediary to speak with him? Why would you need forgiveness from someone else, when redemption is a process of self-knowledge? This simple idea undid the need for the entire external structure, returning spiritual authority to the one place where it truly belongs, the individual. And nature, in its infinite wisdom, has given us a biological echo of this spiritual truth, a small organ nestled in the center of our brain, the pineal gland. The ancient mystics called it the eye of fire, or the third eye, as they intuited its function as a doorway to subtle perception. It is the physical equivalent of the Gnostics' inner light, a biological antenna capable of picking up frequencies beyond the limited spectrum of our five senses. The existence of this portal within us is living proof that we were designed for direct experience, to see beyond the veil. It is a physical reminder that the temple is not made of stone, but of flesh and bone, and that the key to enlightenment lies dormant within us, waiting for the right moment to awaken. However, it is here, at this point in the journey, that the most subtle trap presents itself. It is a betrayal that comes not from the outside, but from within us. In fleeing the stone cathedrals, many seekers with the best of intentions end up recreating the very same mental prisons that the Gnostics tried to break. The need for security is so profoundly human that without a vigilant awareness, we simply trade one master for another. The charismatic guru becomes the new priest, the best-selling book becomes the new Bible, and the weekend workshop becomes the new confessional. The cell may seem more comfortable, the bars may be made of light and inspiring words, but deep down, it remains a cell. This dynamic repeats because the pattern of seeking authority outside of ourselves is etched into our collective psyche. We hand over our power so naturally that we barely notice we are doing it. We fall in love with the certainty in someone else's voice, with the clarity in their gaze, and we believe that if we follow their steps, we will find our own light. But the veiled lesson of the Gnostics, the truth that whispers beneath all their texts, is that true gnosis can never be borrowed. It is not a credential you receive or a knowledge you acquire. It is a lived experience. It is the truth that blossoms from the soil of your own experience, a certainty that you feel in your bones and that no external word can give or take away. In the modern world, this external search manifests as a vicious cycle, almost an addiction. It is the incessant quest for the next revealed secret, the next bombshell of information that promises us enlightenment. Each new piece of knowledge gives us a small dose of dopamine, a temporary feeling of power and of belonging to a circle of initiates. But this is a hunger that is never satisfied. It is the difference between collecting recipes and actually cooking and savoring the food. True integration does not happen by accumulating more spiritual data, but by having the courage to be silent, to turn off the external voices, and finally to allow the wisdom that already resides within us to emerge and speak. The true Gnostic work today is this. It is to observe with a radical compassion this tendency to look outside. It is to notice the exact moment when we are about to hand over our authority. It is to feel the impulse to idolize a master, and in that instant, choose instead to honor the master that dwells within our own heart. Freedom is not found in finding the perfect system or the perfect guide. Freedom is in realizing that the system and the guide you so desperately seek already exist, complete and perfect, inside of you. To understand the depth of Gnostic knowledge, we need to feel the difference between two words, the Word and the Logos. In conventional tradition, the Word of God was a law spoken from on high, a commandment to be followed, an order to be obeyed. It created a clear separation between the Creator and the creation. But the Gnostic Logos was something radically different. It was not a spoken law, but a living, intelligent code that permeates all of existence. It was not something to be obeyed, but a frequency with which to align. The Logos was the divine logic, the universal mind pulsating within every particle, every plant, and every human heart, inviting us to actively participate in the dance of creation. This ancient wisdom finds a surprising echo on the frontiers of our modern understanding. The idea of the Logos as information that vibrates resonates with the perception that, at the most fundamental level, the universe is not made of things, but of vibrations, of energy. The ancient Hermetic principle of the Kybalion, which states that nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates, is not just a mystical philosophy. It is a description of the very nature of reality. The Gnostics understood that if everything is vibration, then our thoughts, our emotions, and our intentions are not passive, private events. They are transmissions. They are frequencies we emit into the quantum field, constantly shaping the reality around us. It is here that the true power and the true danger reside, in the eyes of those who seek to control. If your thoughts and feelings are creative forces, then your thought forms, held with focus and emotion, literally build the structures of your life. You can unconsciously use this energy to erect the walls of a prison of fear and limitation, reinforcing the same patterns of suffering over and over again. Or you can, with awareness, use this same energy to weave a path of liberation, aligning your personal frequency with harmony, clarity, and love. The choice between being a prisoner of your world or the architect of it has always been in your hands, or more precisely, in your vibration. And now, perhaps, it becomes clearer why the word that lives inside you, your personal Logos, is so frightening to any external power. A person who remembers that they are a center of creative vibration cannot be easily manipulated. A soul that understands that its silence has a frequency and that its presence alters the environment does not need anyone's validation or permission. It becomes a sovereign force of nature, a universe unto itself. This knowledge was not forbidden merely for being heretical. It was forbidden for being the definitive map to self-liberation, the key that dissolves all external chains by showing us that we were the ones holding them all along. Of all the texts that the sands of Egypt guarded for over 1,000 years, perhaps none is more dangerous to a mindset of control than the Gospel of Thomas. This is not a book of stories or miracles. It is a collection of pure, enigmatic, and direct sayings, a transmission of consciousness that does not seek to convert, but to awaken. It was buried not just for being different, but for being radically liberating. Its beauty and its danger lie in its simplicity, as we see in one of its most profound passages. Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there. Feel the weight of those words for a moment. The idea here is one of the most revolutionary in human spiritual history. The divine spark, the sacred presence, is not locked away in a golden tabernacle or waiting for us in a distant celestial kingdom. It is here, now pulsating in the density of the wood, in the solidity of the stone, in the breath of the air you inhale. This is not a poetic metaphor. It is a statement about the nature of reality. It means that the sacred is not something you need to seek in special places, but something you can find in the extraordinary normality of your daily life. The divine is in the mundane, and the mundane is the highest expression of the divine. This single idea, when truly absorbed, undoes the entire need for an ecclesiastical hierarchy. If God is in the stone you walk on and the wood you touch, why would you need a consecrated building to find him? If the divine presence is as accessible as your own breath, why would you need a priest as an intermediary to communicate with it? The Gospel of Thomas does not offer a new path to salvation. It reveals that the path and the destination have always been beneath your feet and within your heart. It removes the power from the hands of an elite and returns it to each individual, turning every act into a prayer and every moment into an opportunity for communion. And so, the question this ancient text asks us today is not about theology or history. It is a practical, intimate, and perhaps a slightly uncomfortable question. Looking at your life, at your beliefs, at your fears, where are you still waiting for permission? Permission to feel whole, permission to trust your intuition, permission to consider yourself worthy of your own light. Where are you still looking for an external savior, when the wisdom of Thomas reminds us that the kingdom is already spread out upon the earth, waiting only for us to have the eyes to see and the courage to claim it as our own? In the geometric center of our brain resides a small, pine cone-shaped organ, a biological mystery that has haunted philosophers and mystics for millennia. The philosopher René Descartes, in his search for the connection between matter and spirit, called it the principal seat of the soul. But this was not a new idea. It was the echo of a much older wisdom, a knowledge that civilizations like ancient Egypt already revered. They saw the pineal gland not just as a part of the body, but as a sacred portal, an inner eye capable of perceiving realities that the physical eyes cannot see. This small gland is, in fact, a biological bridge to altered states of consciousness. It is an endogenous pharmacy, capable of producing substances that alter our perception of reality, opening the doors to what we call the mystical, the visionary, or the transcendental. From shamanic traditions to the modern study of molecules like DMT, the pineal is consistently associated with the human ability to transcend linear time and space and experience a direct connection to the vast web of existence. It is our innate spiritual technology, a stargate built into our own biology, waiting to be activated. An institution that seeks total control over the spiritual lives of people cannot simply remove this organ. Therefore, it does the only thing it can. It tries to claim its function and demonize its independent use. The Inquisition did not just burn people. It burned the legitimacy of personal visionary experience. The visions, the inner voices, and the states of ecstasy that arose spontaneously were systematically labeled as the work of the devil, as dangerous heresy. This created a deep wound in the collective psyche, a fear of looking inward, a terror of trusting one's own spiritual perceptions, teaching us to distrust our own inner universe. And yet, the portal remains. It has survived all dogmas and all persecutions. And its activation does not require any complicated ritual or the permission of any external authority. The keys are the same ones that the ancient mystics and Gnostics have always known: silence, darkness, and introspection. By withdrawing from the constant noise of the outer world and turning our attention inward, we create the conditions for this endogenous awakening to happen naturally. It is a process that needs no priest, no guru, no intermediary, for it is the birthright of every human soul to remember its own light. Let's talk about one of the oldest and most powerful symbols of humanity, the serpent. There is an archetypal fear connected to it, a shiver that runs up the spine, a repulsion that seems to come from a place deeper than our own lifetime. We were taught to see it as the enemy, the tempter, the personification of the evil that caused us to lose paradise. But that is only one half of the story, the half we were told to keep us afraid. In the other half, the half that was hidden from us, the serpent is the symbol of wisdom, healing, transformation, and eternal life. This conflict between the serpent as enemy and the serpent as guide lives within us, and the fear we feel is the echo of a very ancient battle for the control of our consciousness. The inversion of the serpent's meaning was one of the most effective acts of psychological control in history. It was a stroke of genius to suffocate the human desire for inner knowing. By teaching us to fear the symbol of wisdom, they taught us to fear wisdom itself. They associated the search for forbidden knowledge, for direct experience, with sin and the fall. The message was clear. Do not dare to seek for yourself. Do not dare to question, for the path of self-knowledge is dangerous and will lead you to ruin. This fear was planted so deep in our collective unconscious that even today we feel a hesitation, a distrust, when we approach our own inner power. However, the most ancient traditions preserve the memory of the serpent's true role. The myths whisper of the emerald tablets of Thoth, the divine scribe, who brought the knowledge of the stars to humanity. They speak of a serpent fire, a powerful energy that sleeps at the base of the spine. Eastern traditions call this same energy Kundalini, the coiled serpent, which when awakened rises up the spine, activating the energy centers and illuminating the mind with a cosmic consciousness. This is not a story from one isolated culture. It is a universal memory, a modern echo of a truth that humanity once knew, that we carry within us a transformative and divine force. And this primordial symbol is not just an ancient legend or a distant myth. It lives in you now. It lives in the structure of your spinal column, the physical ladder through which this energy can ascend. It lives in the double helix of your DNA, the entwined serpent that carries the code of your life. And it lives in your deepest, most inexplicable fears, especially the fear of reclaiming your full power, of healing your oldest wounds, and of being reborn into your true nature. The fear of the serpent is, ultimately, the fear of your own untamed life force, your inner wisdom, and your limitless potential for transformation. So, what does it mean to live as a Gnostic in today's world, far beyond the ancient texts and complex philosophies? It is not about adopting a new label or an identity from the past. It is about cultivating an inner posture, a way of being in the world that is, in itself, an act of silent rebellion and profound self-liberation. It is a subtle shift in where you source your truth. The essence of this posture can be summarized in a simple and direct question you can ask yourself at any moment of your day. In this matter, am I obeying or am I discovering? Obedience belongs to the world of control, of external rules, and of fear. Discovery belongs to the world of the soul, of direct experience, and of trust. The true Gnostic ritual does not happen on an altar with candles and incense unless you want it to. The true ritual is your own life. The daily micro-practice is the willingness to question, the courage to doubt what has been presented to you as absolute truth, and the devotion to honor your direct experience above any theory or dogma. It is the sacred act of taking a question to your heart and waiting for the answer that emerges from within, instead of running to the book or the guru for a ready-made answer. This is the ritual without an altar. Everyday gnosis, the real practice, is simply this: to perceive with a gentle and non-judgmental compassion how our unconscious still searches for external saviors. It is to observe the subtle impulse to hand over our authority to a partner, a boss, an ideology, or a promise of future happiness. It is to notice, in the body, the feeling of relief that comes from letting someone else decide for us, and in that exact moment, to take a deep breath and choose, with love, not to abandon yourself. It is a continuous act of self-reclamation, a silent rescue of your personal power, moment by moment. To live as a Gnostic today is to have the courage to be your own spiritual laboratory. It is to test truths, not just accept them. It is to be willing to walk in the darkness of uncertainty, trusting the small light of your own intuition as your guide. It is to understand that enlightenment is not a spectacular event that happens all at once, but a gradual unfolding, a process of removing the layers of everything that you are not, until only the essence remains. And that essence, you will discover, has always been there, patient, silent, and completely free. The great library of Alexandria was burned, and the texts of Nag Hammadi were buried beneath the sand, in an attempt to erase a wisdom the world was not ready to receive. But there is a myth, an echo that travels through the ages. It is the echo of Thoth, the divine scribe, the guardian of the forbidden records, the one who knew the secrets of the Akasha. The veiled message behind these stories of destruction is not about loss, but about permanence. It is the hermetic promise that no flame can truly destroy what is engraved in the living mind, in the vibrational field of consciousness. The knowledge was never really lost, it just changed its address. It was transferred from stone and papyrus to the only archive that is truly eternal, the inner temple. It is here that the fundamental principle of Hermeticism, as within, so without, reveals its deepest meaning. It is not just a beautiful phrase, it is the very mechanism of reality. The outer universe that you perceive is a perfect mirror of the inner universe that you cultivate. Therefore, the search for lost texts or for external wisdom is, ultimately, a detour. The true, forbidden text, the lost gospel you so desperately seek, is your own unclaimed perception. Your ignored intuitions, your invalidated feelings, and your forgotten dreams are the lost pages of your sacred book. Your third eye is your Nag Hammadi. The final call, then, is not to a new belief, but to a profound integration. It is an invitation for you to live as the scribe of your own Akasha, the attentive reader of your own soul. It is to claim your place as the sole authority on your own truth, with no church, no gatekeeper, and no intermediary, only the silent presence of the witness that dwells within you. It is to understand that every breath is an act of sacred writing, and every moment of presence is the reading of a divine page. You are, at the same time, the book, the reader, and the author of your journey. You have felt this before. In moments of silence, you have felt this pull, this quiet whisper coming from a nameless place. It was not your imagination, it was not a fantasy, it was a memory of who you were before the forgetting, and of who you are, at this very moment, becoming once again. If this journey has resonated in your spirit, leave a silent acknowledgement in the comments, a statement not for the world, but for your own soul. To continue on this journey of remembrance and awakening, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and to like this video. And remember, it's not about what you want, but about who you are.